In the spring of 2020, because of the spread of the virus, COVID-19, a lot has changed all around the world. Some of the changes have been good, and some of the changes have been bad. And it depends on who you talk to, which ones are good and which ones are bad. But regardless of what you believe about the virus, about the response, or about the new normal, there's at least one thing I think we can all agree on. And that is that recent events have given us an opportunity to rethink some aspects of our lives and of how society ought to function. In fact, if we think deeply about it, each of the many scenes we're likely to have experienced in recent days present a distinct opportunity to reevaluate some part of our participation in society. Now, what exactly am I talking about? Well, as an example, I'd like to lead you in a short exercise. Imagine a time in these past few weeks when you were in front of a computer screen, either for a work, school, or church-related activity. Is that a familiar scene? Now, analyze it. How do you feel in that moment? Are you relieved that the connection is still possible? Does it make you miss the in-person interaction, or are you mostly content? Can you envision making more use of this type of interaction in the future, or less? Your answers to these questions are, of course, going to vary. Different individuals are going to have different responses. For some, discovering how easy and convenient it can be to work or study from home means that you might do more of that in the future. But for others, being away from friends and coworkers may have been very difficult, and you may be very anxious to get back to the way things were before, and you're going to highly value in-person interactions. Maybe it's a mix of both reactions. Maybe it's one reaction for one way of thinking, and it's another reaction for a different activity. The point is that with the scene of us in front of a computer screen as a reference point, we have all just thought very deeply about that activity, and we've been able to analyze its value to us. I want to do that again, but with a different reference point. This time, the reference point is the supermarket. Have you been to one of those recently? In addition to people wearing masks, tape on the floor, cashiers wearing gloves, and there being plexiglass shields between the shoppers and the cashiers, there's one other element to this scene that is all too familiar in recent days. The fact that the grocery store may not be fully stocked. Navigate to the toilet paper aisle. Have you personally witnessed the bare shelves there? How did that make you feel? Amused? Nonchalant? Anxious? Did you want to make sure that your family had an ample supply of the product? Americans consume more paper products than any other nation. And toilet paper in particular, unfortunately, is sourced primarily from old-growth forests around the world. I know it may be difficult to remain invested in this analysis at this point because I have hinted at a possible reason to change our bathroom habits. For Americans, this subject is taboo. For over a century, we have shown an incredible level of reluctance to discuss it with any degree of seriousness. But I want to encourage you to continue reflecting on what it means to purchase and flush away toilet paper that's sourced from an old-growth forest. And I want you to allow yourself to seriously consider some of the ways in which it would actually be quite easy to choose a better product. You probably already know that toilet paper is bad for the environment. For most of the past decade, the major NGOs such as the World Wildlife Fund, the National Resources Defense Council, the Rainforest Action Network, the Friends of the Earth, and Greenpeace have been campaigning for major world toilet paper companies to switch to using recycled paper in their product. Despite these efforts, however, major world toilet paper companies have mostly just paid lip service to environmental ideals, and time again they've been caught going back on their commitments. Today, over half of the toilet paper Americans use is still being sourced from old-growth forests, including virgin forests. The remaining 25 to 50% comes mostly from tree farms built where the forest used to stand. Only about 2% comes from recycled paper. In fact, next time you're in a well-stocked toilet paper aisle, I encourage you to read the labels and see if you even can find a toilet paper product which states in no uncertain terms that it's from 100% recycled material. I doubt that you'll be able to find it. Why? Because stores do not usually carry them, as they are not as popular as the softer brands that don't come from recycled paper. Worldwide, toilet paper threatens many fragile ecosystems, such as the Sumatran rainforest. The Sumatran rainforest is home to the last 7,500 Sumatran orangutans, the last 500 Sumatran tigers, and the last 80 Sumatran rhinos. The toilet paper made from the Sumatran rainforest is mostly bought in China, but there are two brands that sell toilet paper from these rainforests to Americans. Those brands are Paseo and Livy. You may not have heard of those brands because they're not major competitors in the North American toilet paper market. Nonetheless, the major American brands are cutting down old-growth forests right here in North America. Specifically, such brands as Charmin, Ultrasoft, and Quilted Northern are sourcing the wood pulp for their toilet tissue directly from the boreal forest. The North American boreal forest comprises most of Canada and Alaska. It is 1.5 billion acres. It's home to many different species of wolves, moose, caribou, the grizzly bear, the black bear, the polar bear, and it's the summer home for over 5 billion birds. It is certainly worth saving, and since it's still largely intact, there's still time for our choices to have an impact. The Boreal Songbird Initiative poignantly states on their website that the North American boreal presents a truly unique opportunity to get it right. Although the relative intactness of this ecosystem is inspiring, at this point in history we ought to know better than to trust that destructive industries will simply rein in their bad practices before it gets too bad. We need to be proactive about our dependence on soft toilet paper sourced from this region. In addition to its devastating environmental impact, there are other reasons to reconsider our relationship to toilet paper. For one thing, it's expensive. A conservative estimate of how much we spend on toilet paper is around $10 per person in the household per month. That works out to at least $120 a year, and certainly more if you have kids in the house or if you have guests coming over. If you had that extra $120 a year, you could certainly spend it on more practical things. Another pair or two of shoes, perhaps, a newspaper subscription, or a streaming service. Maybe you can even upgrade your cell phone. As I will show you in a few moments, wiping our bottoms doesn't have to be this expensive. Now for the most uncomfortable part of this talk. I'm going to talk about the cleanliness of toilet paper. You may already be aware that in other countries, Americans are regarded as rather dirty because of the way they choose to clean up after themselves in the bathroom. In order to wrap your head around why that might be, I'd like you to think about how you wash your hands. With the coming of the coronavirus, we have all seen plentiful reminders that effective hand washing involves soap and water. Suppose you sent your child into the bathroom to wash their hands, and all they did was wipe their hands off on a dry towel. Would you consider that clean enough? Suppose that instead of taking a shower, you simply took a dry towel to your body. Would you feel nice and fresh afterwards? Science agrees with our European friends. There really is no substitute for washing our rear ends after we use the bathroom. In fact, the prevalence of hemorrhoids and UTIs in the United States could likely be alleviated if we washed rather than wiped our bottoms. This brings me to a discussion of the first possible alternative to consider in your post-toilet paper lifestyle, the bidet. Due to the squeamishness of Americans that was mentioned earlier, it's true that bidets have not been thought of very highly by Americans, even if they are quite common throughout the rest of the world. But there is evidence that this is changing. Google Trends shows that there was a dramatic spike in people searching the term bidet on March 22nd, 2020, maybe due to those toilet paper shortages. Installing a bidet is surprisingly cheap and easy. Although there are standalone models that look a lot like a toilet and are put into the bathroom alongside your existing commode, it's also possible to simply buy a spray nozzle attachment for your toilet. One of these will probably run you anywhere from $30 to $100. That's less than a year's supply of toilet paper, so the bidet is clearly going to pay for itself in no time. A number of companies have sprung up recently offering variations of the spray nozzle attachment type of bidet for your existing toilet. And they've kicked off an aggressive marketing campaign targeting the Facebook feeds of anyone who may have searched for bidet or environmental impacts of toilet paper recently. Don't ask me how I know that. The ads for such companies as Clear Rear, Butt Buddy, and Brondell feature short videos that emphasize just how easy installation is. But if you can't spare the $30 to $100 for a cheap bidet right now, or you don't really want to do any installation, no matter how easy it might be, there is still a free option for a fast breakup with toilet paper, and that's called family clothing. How does it work? Well, you get a large bucket with a lid, such as a Tidy cat litter bucket, and you put just a little vinegar in the bottom of it. You set that next to your commode. Then you cut up any old towels or flannel sheets that you may have taking up space in your linen closet and cut those into little squares. These you place in a basket at the back of your toilet. When it's time to clean yourself, you use a couple of these squares rather than the paper ones. They are much softer than even the softest toilet paper, and they will get you just as clean. You place them into the bucket when you're finished and replace the lid. The vinegar in the bucket will prevent the used cloths from emitting any odor. When you're out of family cloth, you can either wash the contents of your bucket in very hot water and some laundry soap, or you can throw them all out and replace them with more worn out old rags from your linen. If you're at all concerned about whether or not it's sanitary to reuse them, experts have said it's no less sanitary than laundering a baby's cloth diapers, which of course many people are familiar with nowadays. Even if you choose to throw out every piece of family cloth after you use it, you're still making a more sustainable choice than toilet paper, because the rags that you cut up had a use before you used them as family cloth, and because you will not be flushing the family cloth or any toilet paper into your septic system. This could prolong the amount of time homeowners can go between pumping out their septic system, thereby saving them even more money. I would argue that switching to a bidet or to family clothing is actually a better option than just buying recycled paper. Not only because both options are healthier and more comfortable for your bottom and less expensive, but also because I am someone who has tried to only buy recycled toilet paper in the past. From experience, I can tell you that the brands which are 100% recycled are not always available in the store. If your resolution after hearing this talk is to simply try and buy recycled paper from here on out, you're quite likely to go back on this commitment when the moment comes and you're forced to make a selection from whatever's available in the store. I suppose if you wanted to order toilet paper for home delivery, you may have more selection available online, but then you have to add the price of shipping. Today, we've examined why toilet paper is bad for the environment, bad for our wallets, and bad for our bums. We've looked at two options which are better in all these regards than toilet paper, but only you can decide if you're really ready to change this habit. What type of world do you want to help create post-coronavirus? Are you comfortable with the trend of 10 million trees a year being flushed away continuing? Or are you ready to be the type of person who is completely unaffected by any toilet paper shortages in the stores because you've already learned a better way? Thanks.